So today I want to continue the RS series by building on what Edwin shared and talk about the importance of vision. Because generosity is powerful, but when paired with vision, it becomes focused, intentional, and transformational. So Edwin gave us the analogy last week of how generosity is like planting seeds, right? Every act of giving has the potential to produce something good. And vision is what tells you where to plant. You see, without vision, you might scatter your seeds on ground that may or may not bear fruit. But with vision, you plant your seeds intentionally on good soil, and your impact gets multiplied. So the question I want to throw to all of you here today is, what's your vision for your finances? So some common answers I hear from my friends, my age, or colleagues, or even just scrolling on TikTok is the idea or concept of FIRE. Anyone heard before? Yeah, okay, so FIRE is basically the acronym stands for Financially Independent, Retire Early. So a lot of them, they go, I want to be financially independent. I want to retire in my 40s and travel the world without worrying about money until I'm 80. Or for some of us, my friends, they say, YOLO, live in the moment. I will spend now to experience life. I will travel, I will go for all the concerts, eat all the good food because I'm only young once, right? Or for some of us, the more conservative one, we'll go, we need to save for the future. I want to buy a flat, I want to settle down, I want to start a family, maybe invest a little bit. Or maybe for some of the youth here, it's like your vision is I just want to be rich enough to buy all the gadgets, all the basketball sneakers, all the in-game skins, and not have to think twice or ask my parents for money. Right? So some of you, you find it funny, but, let's be real. If we are honest, most of us, we fit somewhere in between. So one thing I've come to realize about us as a community, depends on how you see it, is, it could be a blessing, it could be a hurdle for us, is because we have moved so far away from the prosperity gospel, teaching and everything, that we've also become a little bit too afraid to talk about money at all. We don't want to sound materialistic, we are giving so that God will bless us with more, I cringe when I talk about that. But some of us, like me, we swing to the other way. We stop being ambitious altogether about our finances. But friend, ambition itself isn't bad. It's what drives it that matters. And I actually think that we really do need to bring back a healthy ambition for our finances. One that's guided by God's values, His vision, not by greed or comparison. Because let's be really real here, money is important, right? Without money, we wouldn't have a home here at TiVo. Without money, we wouldn't be able to run your laser tag event or serve the community. And when you and I, we are constantly worried about not having enough, it's hard to serve God or others from our best self. So yes, money matters, but it matters most when it serves a purpose bigger than ourselves. And that's why vision is so important. Because if we don't set a vision for our own finances, then the world, social media, culture, the pressure to keep up, will set it for you and I. So today, I want to challenge us to get ambitious about our finances, all right? I want us to stretch our imagination about what is possible by reflecting on 3 guiding questions to think about your vision. So firstly, we start with the why. What's your motivation? So before we talk about budget, investments, or giving, we need to ask the most important question, which is why? Why do you save? Why do you grow your income? Why do you want to earn more? Why do you give? What's the purpose behind your financial vision? So we talk about how ambition isn't bad. In fact, we should be ambitious even about money. But ambition without direction can lead us to chase the wrong thing. So the question isn't, are you ambitious, but what are you ambitious for? The truth is, many people's financial decisions are driven by fear. Fear of not having enough, fear of falling behind, fear of missing out. Especially in Singapore with rising costs, social pressure, it's really easy to build our lives around security. We work hard, save diligently, plan carefully, all to make sure that we have enough. And that's important, okay? That is wise. But when fear or security becomes our why, then no amount will ever feel enough. You will just keep on chasing and chasing, but never really arriving. Just like, you run on the treadmill and, it doesn't lead you anywhere. So maybe the better ambition isn't just to be secure, but to be significant. You see, significance is different from success. When it comes to our finances, success is, how much you can accumulate. But significance is about what you can contribute. Success would ask the question, how much can I get? But significance would ask, how much can I give? It's about leaving something behind that outlives you, not for recognition, but for impact. So when your why is clear enough and rooted in significance and purpose, then money becomes a tool to bring that vision to life, to create impact, and to serve something that is bigger than yourself. Money begins to work for you, through you, to make the world a better place instead of being the thing that you serve. Right? So what does it look like when ambition is guided by a higher vision? Okay, so I want to share an inspiring story about Yvonne Swinert, French name, the founder of Patagonia. Okay, so Patagonia is a very, very successful company that sells climbing gears and climbing equipment. Okay, so this founder, Yvonne, he didn't start Patagonia to get rich. He actually began with his love for climbing and his desire to actually create better gear. But as the company grew, he started asking a deeper question, which is, what's the point of all this success? He realized that businesses, even his own, was actually harming the planet. And that really, really bothered him. So he took radical steps to change how he ran his business. In 2011, Patagonia actually ran a full-page advertisement in the New York Times that said, "Don't buy this jacket," urging people to buy only what they truly needed. They also launched a worn-wear program, repairing old jackets instead of selling new ones. Then in 2022, this founder, he made the ultimate move. He gave the company worth around $3 billion in 2022 to a trust and non-profit dedicated to protecting the planet. And he famously said this, I quote him, "Earth is now our only shareholder." You see, this guy, he could have kept the company for himself, passed down to his own children, live in comfort, but he decided to give it all away. Why so? Because his ambition wasn't about money, but about significance. It was to protect the planet Earth that he loved. Very inspiring, right? So let's bring it closer to home, to faith and giving. And let's take a look at another story in the Bible. So turn with me to Mark chapter 12, verse 41 onwards. So some of you probably very familiar with this story. It's about the poor widow's contribution, all right? So if you do have the Bible, you can look at the screen. It's on the projection. So verse 41, it says, Jesus sat across from the collection box for the temple treasury and observed how the crowd gave their money. Many rich people were throwing in lots of money. One poor widow came forward and put in 2 small copper coins worth a penny. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I assure you that this poor widow has put in more than everyone who's been putting money in the treasury. All of them are giving out of their spare change, but she, from her hopeless poverty, has given everything she had, even what she needed to live on. Wow. I think what's really fascinating for me is that this story was written thousands of years ago, right? But it's still so relatable to us today. I think when we have little, it's often easier to trust. It's easier to give freely because you don't really have much to hold on to. There's a simplicity and sincerity in that kind of giving. But as we grow older, as we start to have more, more money, more responsibility, we start to have more to lose. And something starts to shift. Generosity can move from freedom to fear, from trust to control. We start giving not because, we want to, but because we feel we should. Right? It becomes a routine, a formality, a checklist to tick off. Like, as a Christian, check. I've given my tithe. Check, I've given my offering. Check, I've given to RF, right? But you know what is powerful about this widow story is that it reminds us that generosity isn't about how much you have, but what's in your heart. You see, what's very powerful about this widow was that her why wasn't fear of losing, but it was faith in what truly mattered. So what the rich, they gave out of comfort. This widow, she gave out of conviction. And that was what made the difference in this world. So here's the challenge, to all of us is, what if your why could stretch beyond security, and move towards significance? Maybe it could be, I want to earn more so I can create opportunities for others. I want to give freely so generosity becomes a part of who I am. I want to invest in projects that leave a lasting impact on my community. Your why doesn't have to start big. It just has to start from the right place. A why that is focused only just on survival mode, it keeps your vision small. But a why that is rooted in significance, it stretches far beyond you and I. It transforms the way you live, spend, and give. Amen? All right, and point number 2, after why, once you know your why, the next question is how? Right? What's in your hands? How do you turn that vision into reality? I think oftentimes, we are people who have good dreams, good vision, but we sometimes wait a little too much, right? We wait for more money, more skills, more time, more opportunities before we take action. But the starting point isn't more. It's actually what is already in your hand. So let's take a look at the story of Jacob in Genesis chapter 30, verse 25 to 43. Okay, so this is a long passage. Stay with me, all right? I'll explain more later on. Okay, so Genesis 30, 25. Okay, so this story is talking about the main character here is Jacob. Okay, so Jacob's father-in-law is this character called Laban. Okay, so Jacob has been working for Laban for almost many years, almost 20 years. And now Jacob is saying that, hey, I want to start my own family. I want to move out from your household. Okay, so let's read here, right? It says in verse 25, after Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, his father-in-law, send me off so that I can go to my own place and my own country. Give me my wives and children whom I've worked for, and I will go. You know the work I've done for you. Laban said to him, do me this favor. I've discovered by a divine sign that the Lord has blessed me because of you. So name your price and I will pay it. Jacob said to him, you know how I've worked for you and how well your livestock have done with me. While in my care, what little you had has multiplied a great deal. The Lord bless you wherever I took your livestock. Now, when will I be able to work for my own household too? Laban said, what will I pay you? Jacob said, don't pay me anything. If you will do this for me, I will take care of your flock again and keep a portion. So I will go through the entire flock today, taking out all of the speckled and spotted sheep, all of the black male lambs, and all of the spotted and speckled female goats, and that will be my price. So I will be completely honest with you. When you come to check on our agreement, every female goat with me that isn't speckled or spotted and every male lamb with me that isn't black will be considered stolen. So Laban said, all right, let's do it. However, on that very day, Laban took out all the striped and spotted male goats and all of the speckled and spotted female goats, any with some white in it, and all of the black male lambs and gave them to his son. And he put a 3-day trip between himself and Jacob, while Jacob was watching the rest of Laban's flock. So then Jacob, in verse 38, says, he took new branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees, and he put white stripes on them, exposing the branches' white color. He set the branches that he had put near the watering troughs so that they were in front of the flock when they drank, because they often mated when they came to drink. So when the flock mated in front of the branches, they gave birth to striped, speckled, and spotted young. Jacob sorted out the lambs, turning the flock to face the striped and black ones in Laban's flock, but keeping his flock separate, setting them apart from Laban's flock. So whenever the strongest of the flock mated, all right, Jacob put the branches in front of them near the watering trough so that they mated near the branches. But he didn't put up branches for the weakest of the flock. So the weakest became Laban's, so the weakest became Laban's and the strongest Jacob's, all right? And eventually Jacob became very, very rich, all right? Okay, very, very long passage, okay. So if you follow me, Laban is Jacob's father-in-law, right? Jacob has been working for him for almost 20 years, and during those 20 years, Laban has repeatedly exploited him. Changing his wages, changing the terms of the agreements multiple times. But despite all this, Jacob remained faithful, faithfully looking after Laban's flocks. And Laban became very rich, very wealthy. So when Jacob finally said, hey, I want to leave and build my own household, he had nothing to his name, right? So he asked Laban, okay, how about you give me those flocks that are spotted and, they're striped, right? But Laban tried to cheat him again, right? He removed all the striped and spotted animals and gave them to his son, trying to ensure that Jacob gained nothing. Right? So if I were Jacob, right, I would be so mad, I tell you. I would just run away with all the flock, But this guy, he didn't, right? Instead, he engaged his creativity and he used wisdom, right? He used a creative breeding method, okay? I'm not sure how it works, but basically, he separated the speckled, streaked, and spotted animals and positioned them strategically such that over time, the flocks that he looked after would multiply, okay, in his favor. So it's important to note, however, that of course this didn't happen overnight. We all know that sheep and goats, they have a gestation of about 5 months. And flocks reproduce gradually, okay? It's not like overnight you have 100 sheep, right? So Jacob's success came through years of patient, faithful effort, combined with a lot of wisdom and strategy, and of course, God's blessing as well. So, what are some lessons we can draw from Jacob's story? Okay, so I have 3 subpoints here, and the first is leverage what you have. You see, Jacob, after so many years of working for Laban, he didn't have money, he didn't have land, he didn't have livestock to start his own household. But he made the most of what he already had, which is his knowledge of animals, his experience of the flocks that he has been looking after for the past 20 years. And also for us here, it could be your skills, your network, your time, or even small financial resources. What seems ordinary in your hands can multiply when you use it intentionally. For our church, I'll be very honest, finances will always be a challenge, especially because we are a youth model, right? So what do? We don't just wait, God, please provide for us. Please send this rich auntie, rich uncle to donate a lot of money to us, right? We leverage what we have, right? So what do we have? We have a space that we already own, right? So we rent this space out to generate cash flow. We don't wait for God to make a miracle. If God does provide, that's great. But if not, I think what God probably wants us to do is to use what we already have wisely to build a sustainable finance model. So one youth I'm really proud of this period is Riley. So one of her dreams, okay, y'all could have heard the story many times, but is to give voice to the voiceless, right? So now for many of us, that kind of dream might feel far away, right? You might think, wow, to give voice to the voiceless, to do that, I'll need a huge platform, probably a stage bigger than this, right? Maybe a media company, or maybe a lot of money, right? But instead of waiting for the perfect opportunity, Riley started where she was. For the past year, she's been giving tuition to a young primary school boy who is hard of hearing every single week, on top of being a full-time university student. It might not look like much, but it's just one student, 1 hour at a time. But think about it, by helping this primary school boy to learn, to communicate, to grow in confidence, she is already giving voice to someone who might otherwise go unheard. So this girl, she didn't wait for resources she didn't have. She used what she already had, her time, her skills, to make something happen. And the next sub point I have from you that we can learn from Jacob is that we got to be strategic and patient. So Jacob, he used a very clever breeding method to separate the speckled, streaked, and spotted animals. He positioned them very strategically so that they would multiply over time, right? This didn't happen overnight. It took years of careful, consistent effort. The lesson here is big goals take planning and persistence. And we also got to be strategic with your steps and patient with the process. You see, lasting results come from steady, wise action, not taking the shortcut. And I think these days, pop culture has made it such that we want everything fast. Quick money, quick success, quick results. But if you were to interview the wisest and most seasoned investors, they will tell you that great things takes time. Your wealth, your impact, it takes time to accumulate. And what comes too quickly often fades just as fast. So for the youth, perhaps instead of spending all your allowance or pocket money, why not, from the day onwards, start setting aside a portion to save? Or maybe instead of spending all your time to just scroll TikTok, why not pick up a new skill? All right? And maybe, take some of what you saved and invest or fund a small project. Even a small online business or a community project can grow over time if you do it consistently. For the adults, if you're not already investing, start learning. Even small, consistent contribution compound over the years. And for those of us who are dreaming of starting maybe a side hustle or a project, don't wait for the perfect idea or opportunity. Start small, use what's already in your hands, and you'll be surprised how it grows over time. So another person in our community that I'm also very inspired by is Hannah. So if you know her, you'll know that she's super passionate about justice, right? Especially for women and children in marginalized communities. So that's been her dream for as long as I've known her. To somehow be part of, bridging change and hope to people who are often unseen or unheard. Now, we all know that kind of dream doesn't happen overnight. To do that, you need skills, you need experience, and yes, you also need resources and probably a lot of money. But instead of just saying one day, Helena decided to start somewhere. And she's been really strategic about it. So recently, she took English certification courses so that she can one day teach internationally. And that will help to open more doors for herself and for others. She's also took on courses to train as a first responder so that she can be ready to step in and help in real crises or trauma situations. And on top of that, she's part of Elevate Her, a nonprofit here in Singapore that creates safe and inclusive spaces for working women. And through that, she's been building her network, learning from people who are already doing the kind of work that she dreams about. And while she is still teaching here in Singapore, she even wrote a children's book that's now part of the school curriculum, helping young children learn about inclusivity, resilience in a way that actually makes sense to them. So yes, she is still in Singapore, right? But she's not stuck. She's strategic. Every cause, every project, every connection is a step towards the bigger vision that God has put in her heart. And that's what I really love about her, that she's not waiting for everything to fall into place before she starts, but she's already making the most of what's already in her hands. So that's what it means to be strategic and patient. So that everyone here, start small, start today. Plan your steps, be faithful with what you have now. Because when you move with intention, even slow progress can lead to something big. And the last point last lesson we can learn from Jacob is that integrity matters. So growing up, I've always wrestled with this verse, which is, be wise as serpents, innocent as doves, right? Now, in many ways, I feel like this sort of kind of described Jacob in this particular moment of his life. You see, even though Laban tried to cheat him, right? Jacob's approach remained ethical. He relied on creativity, strategy, not deceit or cutting corners. His wealth came through wisdom and faithfulness. It was not manipulation. And this is probably the most important lesson, which is how do we pursue ambition and success, yet maintain our integrity and stay true to our values? Now, I think in Singapore, the culture is such high pressure, that keeping faith and ethics is difficult. Sometimes along the way of us, pursuing our vision, we get tempted to take the shortcut or to compare or to cut corners. I really don't have an easy answer for you because it's not always simple. It's really a fine line between integrity and manipulation. But perhaps, what matters most is your motivation. In that moment of negotiation, in that moment of making a decision, are you acting out of selfish gain, or are you seeking solutions that honor God and benefit others? Because ultimately, integrity isn't just about following rules, right? It's about the heart behind your actions. And maybe one day you will come to a point where the vision you've been building and working so hard for no longer serves the purpose it starts with. And in that moment, you will have to make a choice. Do you have the courage to walk away? So one story, very inspiring as well, is how many of you know Ben and Jerry? I really love their ice cream, right? But even more, I love what the company stands for, right? Do you know from the very beginning, back in 1978, their vision was simple. We believe ice cream can change the world. Ooh, wow. And the founders truly believed it, right? That business shouldn't just be about making money, it should also make a difference. And just this year alone, one of the founders, Jerry Greenfield, the founders are really Ben and Jerry. He made the tough decision, and that is he decided to step away from the company he helped build. And the reason behind it, it was because the company no longer fully stood for the values it once claimed. Their parent company, so Unilever, bought over Ben and Jerry. They tried to block efforts to act in solidarity with Palestine. And that was a decision that really went against the very principles of Ben and Jerry, on what it was founded on. So even after 47 years, of building this company, right, Jerry made one of the toughest decisions of his life, which is to step away. He chose courage over comfort, integrity over convenience. And sometimes doing the right thing means letting go of what you've built, even if it's hard, because that is real courage. So this story, reminds us that, perhaps our vision isn't just about success, growth, or achievement. It's about the impact it creates for ourselves, for others, and for communities around us. So here's the challenge, I want to give to all of us, which is as you pursue your vision, ask yourself not just, am I achieving it? Yes, that's a good checkpoint for you, right? But also ask yourself, what difference is your vision making? Who is it serving? Is it aligned with the values that I stand for? And so this leads us to the final question that I have, which is, what is the impact of your vision? So once you know your why and you understand how to use what's in your hands creatively, the next question is, what difference will it make? This is about impact beyond yourself. The ripple effect of your financial decisions. Is where money becomes a tool for significance, not just security. When we think about the ex-church, it wasn't just about Sunday services, gathering together, or programs, It was about building community. It was about transforming lives. Every resource, time, talent, and money was used intentionally to create spaces where people could grow, serve, and support one another. You see, when a community aligns its resources with a shared purpose, right, the impact multiplies far beyond what any one person could do alone. And that is my hope for TiVo as well. That, as a community, we will come together with a shared purpose to multiply the impact and the good that we can do in this space. So I'm coming to the end of my message really, actually. I realize it's quite short. So I recently came across a comic, right, on Instagram. Watch it, you can come up. I'm not sure how many of you follow the woke salaryman. The woke salaryman, yes. And I thought that the illustration that he gave for one of the recent posts was very apt in helping me bring across this last point. Okay, so let's try, all right? Okay, I'm not reading line for line, but you will be able to follow. All right, so the title of this comic, okay, is actually, I used to think money could help me escape society. I was wrong. So in this comic, the author once believed that money could help him escape society. You know, that by building wealth, he could retire early, live in the countryside, and protect himself from the world's troubles. You know, I also want that. Sounds very good, right? But what happened is, so he pursued money relentlessly, right? He upgraded his skills, he sought for higher pay, he invested wisely, and by the age of 32, wow, even younger than me, he achieved FIRE, right? Financially independent, retired early, he was at the age of retirement, wow. So he thought that he had escaped the world's troubles, you know. But as he traveled and observed the world, he realized that he was wrong. He realized that personal wealth alone cannot solve the problems of society. You know, even if you own a Ferrari, a Porsche, or I don't know what, BMW, it doesn't help, you know, if the roads are full of holes, right? Or even if you're so rich, you can open a fancy cafe, a restaurant, but it wouldn't thrive if the community can't afford your $8 matcha latte. Or even if you build this fancy house, you know, and this super high wall and gates and everything, it wouldn't keep the neighborhood safe from crime. Why so? Because society matters. And our wealth only goes so far if everyone else isn't thriving. So he gave a powerful metaphor, which is think of yourself as a flower and society as a garden, right? A flower can bloom alone for a season, but if the soil dries up or the bees disappear, it wouldn't last. You see, our money, skills, and resources, you know, they have the greatest impact when they serve people and communities, not just for ourselves. And his conclusion is simple yet profound, which is, the grass is greenest where you water it. So let's water it together. So today I want to challenge all of you. You know what? Dare to dream big. Dare to be ambitious about your finances. And don't settle just for mere stability or comfort or security. You know, I want you to really stretch your imagination. You know, imagine a vision where it really leaves a mark for generations to come. You know, imagine a community where each of us uses our resources to build, to serve, to multiply the impact that we can make here. And imagine the stories that future generations will talk about you and I because we chose to dream big, that we chose to give generously, that we chose to invest intentionally. You know, let's not settle for comfort or security alone, but let's live a lasting legacy of faith, generosity, and community.